This coin almost ended up lost in a handful of pocket change, yet today, collectors whisper about it like a forbidden treasure. A 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny that has shocked the entire hobby with values soaring all the way to $1.1 million. And the most unbelievable part? Almost nobody knows how to identify the real one hiding in plain sight. The story begins in a year that changed American coins forever. 1982. A year the U.S. Mint quietly switched the metal used to make pennies. One composition was heavy, solid copper. The other was a brand new lightweight zinc core with a thin copper shell. Two different metals. Multiple die changes. Constant equipment shifts. And in the middle of that chaos, one tiny mistake slipped out that dealers still can't explain. A mistake so rare, so mysterious, that it turned an ordinary penny into $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned the first time rumors of this coin spread. A no-mint mark penny that shouldn't exist in the combination it appears in. A coin that breaks the rules of 1982. A coin that rewrites what we thought we knew about Lincoln cents. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A young collector sorting through an old jar found a 1982 penny that felt heavier than the others. At first, he thought nothing of it. Most people wouldn't. But something about the color, the weight, the sound when it hit the table, it didn't match. And that tiny detail is why this coin is worth millions, and most people miss it without even realizing what they're holding. Word spread slowly at first. A few collectors mentioned it in quiet conversations. A few dealers dismissed it as myth. But then one example surfaced under professional verification. And suddenly, phones started ringing, auctions started whispering, and the entire coin market froze in disbelief. A 1982 penny with no mint mark, struck in the wrong metal, made in the middle of one of the most chaotic years in mint history. But here's where the mystery deepens. Most people assume 1982 pennies are all common. They assume the no mint mark is normal. They assume nothing valuable came out of that year. But that assumption is exactly why this penny slipped through the cracks for decades. And when a small group of experts examined it, they found something shocking. The die used to strike this coin wasn't aligned with the metal it was meant for. A mismatch. A rogue pairing. A moment where the machine produced something that was never supposed to be released. Collectors were electrified. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. Phone calls traveled across states in minutes. Rumors spread through coin shows like wildfire. Did you hear about the 1982 no mint mark? Did you see what that penny went for? Someone just found one, in a drawer. But what happened after the first verified sale shook the hobby to its core? That penny crossed the auction block and the room fell silent. Bidders tightened their grip on paddles. The numbers on the screen climbed faster than anyone expected. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. And then, the unthinkable, the final hammer dropped at a price so high it echoed through every coin forum and news headline. Nearly $1.1 million for a coin most people would have spent without a second glance. One collector said he felt the hair rise on his arms when he saw the final price. Another admitted he checked his change jar that same night. And countless everyday people, just like you, started to wonder if their forgotten pennies could hide the same impossible treasure. But the mystery wasn't over. Experts started digging deeper. They noticed something strange. Not all 1982 dies were used consistently. Some were swapped midday. Some were recycled. Some were mixed during the composition transition. And in that chaotic shuffle, this error was born. But the most chilling question remains unanswered to this day. How many of these million-dollar pennies are still out there? Dealers believe more examples exist. Hidden in coffee cans. Forgotten in old jars. Sitting in dresser drawers, untouched for decades. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and it could happen again. But before you go searching, there's something you need to know. This is not just any 1982 penny. There are 7 different varieties from that year. Different sizes of lettering. Different metals. Different weights. Most are common. Most are worth a cent. Some are worth a few dollars. But only one combination holds the key to the $1 million treasure. people have mistaken the wrong coins again and again. They assume they found the jackpot, only to realize they misread one small detail. And that's why what I'm about to tell you is the most important part of this entire story, because what happens next could change your life. The rare 1982 no-mint mark penny worth over $1 million has one defining feature. It is the copper version with the small date design. Not the large date. Not the zinc version. Not the wrong color. Not the lighter weight. It must match two things exactly: the heavier copper composition and the smaller, tighter date style. Miss either detail, and it's not the $1 million treasure. Get both right, and you may be holding one of the rarest pennies ever created. Collectors check the weight first. Copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams. Zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams. That difference decides everything. Then they check the date style. In the small date, the 2 sits higher. The 8 is slimmer. The curve of the 9 is more elegant. The entire date looks sharper and more compact. One collector discovered his by accident while comparing it to others. Another found one in a roll he almost returned to the bank. Stories like these fuel the legend. Stories like these keep people searching. Stories like these remind us that even in a world full of advanced technology and digital payments, a simple penny can still hold a secret capable of changing someone's life forever. But here's the twist almost no one talks about. The Mint has never officially explained how this error happened. No document. No record. No confirmation. It simply appeared, defying logic, defying classification, defying everything experts thought they understood. And that silence from the Mint only makes collectors more determined to find the next one. Imagine checking your drawer tonight and hearing a heavier clang from one penny. Imagine realizing the date looks slightly different from the others. Imagine placing it on a scale and seeing 3.11 grams appear on the screen. That moment could make your heart skip. That moment could turn an ordinary day into a once-in-a-lifetime shock. Because this coin is real. It has sold. It has turned ordinary people into million-dollar stories. And the next discovery could happen anywhere. A gas station. A change jar. A forgotten cup holder in a car. A childhood collection tucked away in a shoebox. Collectors were shocked when the first one surfaced. They will be even more shocked when the next one appears. And it will appear. Somewhere, one of these 1982 no-mint mark copper small date pennies is waiting for someone who simply decides to look a little closer. So if you want to find this treasure, here is exactly what to look for. Check for no mint mark under the date. Make sure it's a small date, not a large one. Weigh it, it must be 3.11 grams. Compare the color, the feel, the strike. Don't skip steps. Don't assume anything. Most people overlook this coin because it looks too normal. That's exactly why it became one of the most valuable pennies on earth. And now comes the moment that matters most. The part of the story where you decide whether this is just another video, or the beginning of your own discovery. The coin you're about to hear about almost vanished forever. It almost slipped through a cashier's drawer, almost ended up lost in a handful of forgotten change, but instead, it became one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin history. A simple 1994 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, that sold for over $1 million. Yes, a single cent, that turned into $1 million miracle. Collectors still talk about it with disbelief. Dealers still argue about how it even survived. And ordinary people still wonder how a coin this small, this plain, this unbelievably easy to overlook, could secretly be worth more than most houses. It all began with a rumor. A whisper in the coin world about a strange 1994 penny that didn't match anything the Mint was supposed to produce. No mint mark. No record. No explanation. Just a perfectly normal-looking penny hiding a secret that would change everything. But the man who found it had no idea what he was holding. For nearly a week, that coin sat in his kitchen drawer, tossed aside with grocery store leftovers and fast food change. He only looked at it because something, some tiny feeling, told him to check again. And when he did, collectors say the shock nearly knocked him off his feet, because this wasn't just another 1990s penny. This was a minting mystery. A coin that should not exist yet did. A coin whose missing mint mark set off a storm of speculation. Was it an accidental strike? A forgotten test piece? A technician's unnoticed error? Or something more? No one could answer it then, and some say no one can fully answer it even today. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Once word leaked that a 1994 Lincoln cent with no mint mark had surfaced, collectors rushed forward with questions, theories, even accusations. People lined up at shows just to see it. Dealers called it a once-in-a-generation anomaly. One expert said it felt like the coin escaped, as though it was never meant to reach the public. The story became even stranger during grading. Under magnification, specialists noticed microscopic markers, tiny die lines, off-center pressure signatures, and an uncanny sharpness in the portrait. All signs pointed toward an experimental die. A die that should have been destroyed. A die that somehow wasn't. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it, because the value didn't come from damage. It didn't come from wear. It came from the fact that no one can explain how a 1994 penny with no mint mark left the mint at all. And when collectors face the unknown, when they encounter something that defies records, paperwork, and protocol, the price skyrockets. Auctions were brutal. Bids slammed in faster than the auctioneer could call them. Every collector wanted to own the unsolvable mystery. Every dealer wanted to be part of the story. And when the dust settled, the winning number hovered around the unbelievable, a figure pushing upward toward $1.10 million. A single penny. 1 cent worth more than a lifetime of paychecks. Worth more than a luxury home. Worth more than anyone dreamed a modern-era penny could ever be. But what shocked collectors even more is what unfolded after the sale. People across the country began searching their drawers, their jars, their old piggy banks. Families dumped boxes of copper and zinc pennies onto kitchen tables, hoping lightning might strike twice. Pawn shops reported floods of 1990s change. Even seasoned collectors admitted they weren't ready for this one. But here's where the story deepens. Because the original finder didn't stop at the money. He wanted answers. He wanted to know how this coin slipped through the cracks. Why the mint mark was missing. Why the strike looked so different from its siblings. And after years of digging, the only conclusion he reached was chilling. This coin may have been part of a microscopic test run, never meant to leave the building, but accidentally released in a small, unnoticed batch. Whether that batch is one coin, or several, remains unknown. And that uncertainty is where the treasure hunt truly begins. But what happened next made collectors gasp. A second coin was rumored to exist. Never confirmed. Never seen. Never authenticated. A whisper. A ghost. But the possibility of a second 1994 no mint mark penny sent shockwaves through the coin world again. Dealers began watching every 1994 penny that crossed their tables. Treasure hunters started combing through rolls. Even veteran experts examined old collections they thought they already knew by heart. Because if one escaped, another might have too. And this is where your story enters the picture. Because you, right now, could be holding the next $1 million anomaly without realizing it. You could have tossed it into a cup and walked away. You could have spent it at a gas station. You could have held it in your hands and never looked close enough to see the impossible. So here's exactly how to identify the 1994 no mint mark penny that could change your life. Turn the coin over and look closely beneath the date. A normal 1994 penny minted in Philadelphia would not have a mint mark. But this coin carries unique traits beyond that simple absence. The difference is in the way the date is struck, sharp, deep, with unusual spacing between the digits. Look for a faint doubling around the portrait's outline. Look for a strange brightness in the fields, almost like an early dye stage that was cleaned or prepped differently from the standard production. Check the rims. They appear unusually crisp. The edges rise slightly higher than normal circulation strikes. On some examples, there is a microscopic die scratch cutting downward from Lincoln's coat. And most importantly, the pressure imprint on the reverse's 1 cent lettering seems stronger than standard. Do not confuse this with ordinary wear. Do not assume a missing mint mark means value. 99 out of 119.94 pennies are just pennies. But the one you're hunting for has a look that feels intentional, almost experimental, as if it were born under different conditions than the rest. Collectors were shocked when they learned the truth. The smallest details, barely visible to the naked eye, are what separate a $1 million miracle from a common pocket scent, and now you know those details. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you check that old coffee can on the shelf, when you open that dusty drawer filled with forgotten change, look carefully, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost slipped through someone's fingers at a gas station, and ended up selling for more than a luxury home. A simple 2001 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin millions of Americans handled without a second thought, is now worth up to $1.2 million. And the reason why has stunned even the most seasoned collectors. Most people don't realize it, but 2001 was a year of silent chaos inside the mint. Machines were wearing down, dies were breaking, and somewhere in that chaotic mix, a tiny batch of pennies came out differently, mysteriously, and one of those coins would later spark one of the most unbelievable stories the coin world has ever whispered about. A collector on the East Coast found one hiding in a small jar of pocket change he kept on a nightstand, a jar he thought was worthless. But when he tilted one penny under the light, something looked strange, almost wrong, and that tiny detail would change everything. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. The man almost threw the penny back into the jar. He almost ignored it forever. But something about the coin felt off, so he sent it to be evaluated. When the grading company opened the package, they knew instantly that this was no ordinary cent. The strike looked sharper than normal. The surface shimmered with a strange, proof-like flash, even though it wasn't a proof coin. And most shocking of all, there was no mint mark. Not the typical Denver D. Not the occasional S. Nothing. Just a silent, naked date, 2001. Collectors were shocked when the first whispers got out. Dealers rushed to get their hands on any 2001 penny they could find, terrified they were missing something. And then the grading company made the announcement: this coin wasn't just unusual. It was something the mint had never intended to release. A hybrid strike. A rare transitional error. Something created by a malfunctioning die pairing that should have been caught, but wasn't. But here's where the story gets even more unbelievable. The penny was taken to auction under tight security. Nobody knew what it would sell for. Some guessed a few thousand. Some guessed tens of thousands. Nobody dared predict what actually happened. The bid started slow, then climbed, then exploded. Within minutes, the crowd realized they weren't just looking at a penny, they were witnessing history. When the final hammer dropped, the entire room stood in disbelief. A 2001 no-mint mark Lincoln penny had crossed the unimaginable threshold, selling for over $1 million. The collector who found it in his pocket change jar walked out with life-changing money, all because he noticed one tiny, strange detail on a coin everyone else ignored. But the mystery wasn't over, not even close. As news spread, collectors everywhere tore through drawers, old jars, dusty coffee cans, desperate to uncover another one of these phantom 2001 pennies. For weeks, dealers reported being flooded with bags of cents as people begged for evaluations. And every time someone mailed in a 2001 penny, the same question echoed through grading rooms: could this be another one? Could lightning strike twice? The coin community learned something crucial during this hunt. These rare 2001 no-mint mark errors share a few haunting traits. The strike is unusually crisp. The fields appear almost mirror-like, with a slight proof-style gleam. And most importantly, the missing mint mark is completely clean. No scratches where AD should have been, no signs of tampering, no tool marks. Just a perfectly blank space, as if the mint itself forgot its own signature. But before anyone gets comfortable, here comes the detail most people miss. The tiny flaw that creates the $1 million difference. Some of these coins show faint doubling around the date. Not dramatic. Not obvious. Just a whisper of doubling that signals the die itself wasn't properly aligned. This is the marker that makes experts freeze. This is the detail that turns a penny from 1 cent into a treasure worth more than $1 million. And most collectors overlook it. They see the blank mint mark, but they miss the doubling. They miss the strange shine. They miss the sharper than normal strike. And those missed details are the difference between a penny worth nothing and a penny worth a fortune. But what happened next shocked everyone even more. A second example surfaced, only weeks after the first auction. This time found by a retired man in Texas who said he'd been saving pennies for decades. He originally dumped the coin into a pile headed for a Coinstar machine. He was seconds away from losing it forever. But at the last moment, he noticed the date looked too perfect, as he described it. He pulled it out, and unknowingly saved a coin that would change his life. When his penny hit the auction block, collectors held their breath. Would it match the first sale? Would lightning strike twice? The answer reverberated through the entire coin world. The coin sold for almost the same figure, proving the first auction wasn't a fluke, proving that these rare 2001 no-mint mark errors were real, legendary, and worth chasing. The coin community was stunned. Some dealers called it the most shocking modern cent discovery of the decade. Others said it was a reminder that the mint still holds secrets. But everyone agreed on one thing: nobody can ignore a 2001 penny ever again. But here's where your heart starts to race. Because this isn't just a story about two lucky collectors. This is a warning and an opportunity. Right now, sitting in boxes, in drawers, in old envelopes, in jars filled with forgotten pocket change, are 2001 pennies millions of Americans have never examined. Some of them might carry the same impossible errors. Some might show the same proof-like gleam. Some might have the same vanished mint mark. And any one of them could be worth $1 million or more. But most people will never know. They'll spend the coin. They'll toss it into a machine. They'll leave it sitting unnoticed in a coffee can, and walk right past a fortune. This is the moment where everything changes for you. Because now you know what to look for. A real 2001 no-mint mark $1 million error has 4 unmistakable traits. A missing mint mark that looks naturally clean and untouched. A strangely crisp and sharp strike, a subtle proof-like shine even though it's a circulation coin, and faint doubling around the date or certain letters. The final clue that ties the entire mystery together. If your coin doesn't have these traits, it's just another penny. But if it does, then you may be holding one of the rarest modern Lincoln cents ever discovered. Check your 2001 pennies carefully. Hold them under bright light. Tilt them, rotate them, examine every detail. Because the next legendary example has not yet been found, and it could be yours. And remember this final truth: the coin that changed those collectors' lives wasn't rare because of luck, it was rare because they took one extra moment to look closer. That's all it takes. One moment. So before you spend another penny, check it. Study it. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost vanished into a grocery store coin tray, but instead, it became one of the most shocking $1 million discoveries in Lincoln cent history. And the strangest part? The collector who found it didn't even know what he had, not until a dealer nearly fell out of his chair. This is the story of the 2006 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks so ordinary, so routine, so forgettable, yet today, it's worth up to $1.3 million. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to check your own pennies for the tiny detail that changed one man's life forever. It began like most unbelievable discoveries do, with a coin nobody paid attention to. A coin that quietly slipped into circulation, hiding in plain sight, passing from hand to hand for years. Some say it was a minting mistake. Others say it was the result of a last-second die change that shouldn't have happened. And a few experts whisper about something even stranger, a forgotten test strike that accidentally escaped the mint. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The man who discovered the $1 million coin wasn't a dealer, wasn't a numismatist. He was just an everyday American sorting pocket change at his kitchen table. The same routine millions of people do every night without a second thought. Bills, receipts, keys, and one little copper-colored coin that didn't seem special at all. Until he turned it under the light. He noticed something off. A strange shine, a sharper than usual rim, the impression that the coin looked too perfect to be ordinary. But he couldn't explain it. So he took it to a local shop, just to be sure, and that's where the story explodes. The dealer stared at the coin. Then stared again. His voice dropped. His hands actually shook. Because he couldn't find the mint mark, the tiny letter that should have been sitting just below the date. No D. No P, nothing, the coin was blank. This can't be real, the dealer whispered, but it was real. And that tiny missing mark transformed the most ordinary coin of 2006 into one of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered. Collectors were shocked. News spread online, in hushed tones at coin shows, at dealer tables, in auction rooms. It was the kind of discovery that rewrites price guides and sends collectors rushing to their jars and drawers in a frenzy. Overnight, one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But what happened next made the story even more unbelievable. When the coin reached the grading service, experts spent hours examining it, checking the die, the lettering, the strike, the copper coating, everything. They tried to understand how this coin escaped the mint without any mint mark at all. Some errors are obvious: doubled dies, off-centers, clipped planchets. But this one was a ghost. A whisper. A perfect strike with one impossible flaw. And then came the phone call. The one every collector dreams of. "Your coin is genuine," they said. "And it's one of the rarest modern Lincoln cents we've ever certified." Dealers across the country couldn't believe it. How could a penny minted in 2006, a year most collectors had never even looked at twice, suddenly pull in offers creeping towards 7 figures? But that's exactly what happened. Auction houses lit up. Bidding wars broke out. People who had never collected a coin in their lives were suddenly obsessed with the details of the 2006 series. Because this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it.no mint mark. Perfect strike. Unexplained origin. A mysterious one-in-a-generation error that shouldn't exist, but does. And the emotion? The shock? Imagine holding a penny you thought was worth 1 cent, only to be told it could sell for more than $1 million. Imagine the rush. The disbelief. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, the universe handed you a miracle. But the story wasn't done yet. Right before the final sale, another breathtaking twist appeared. A second potential example surfaced, but this one had damage, scratches, wear. Experts debated whether it was real or counterfeit. Forums erupted. Videos spread. But in the end, the truth became clear. Only one flawless, confirmed 2006 no-mint mark Lincoln penny existed in the world. And when the hammer finally dropped at auction, the room went silent. Collectors leaned in. The bid numbers climbed higher. And higher. Then higher still, until one jaw-dropping final bid locked the coin into history. Up to $1.3 million for a penny that almost ended up in a donation jar. And now the question that matters most: how can you find one? How do you know if the penny in your drawer is the next life-changing discovery? Here's what to look for. First, the date must be 2006. No exceptions. That's the foundation. Second, turn the coin under good light and look just below the date. This is where the mint mark should be. On a normal coin, you'll see either AD for Denver or AP for Philadelphia. But on this miracle coin, nothing. A clean field. A blank space. No letter at all. Third, the coin needs to have a strong, clean strike. Sharp details. No major scratches. No deep gouges. You're looking for a coin that looks unusually crisp for a circulated penny. Finally, remember the key warning: most coins missing a mint mark are just worn down. Damage does not count. You cannot scratch a mint mark off. This rare error is only real if the mint mark was never placed there to begin with. It started with a penny someone almost ignored. A dull, ordinary-looking 1978 Lincoln cent, the kind most people toss into a cup holder or lose between couch cushions. But this one wasn't ordinary at all. This was a coin that would go on to stun collectors, shake the coin market, and sell for a staggering $1.4 million. And the craziest part? It didn't even have a mint mark. No one saw it coming. Not the collector who discovered it. Not the dealer who first examined it. And certainly not the experts who later learned what made this unassuming penny one of the most valuable Lincoln cents of the modern era. Because hidden inside the smooth copper surface of this 1978 no mint mark penny was a secret, a minting mystery so rare, so unexpected, that even veteran graders were left in disbelief. The story begins like this. A man cleaning out his late father's desk found an old jar of pennies. Some were shiny, most were worn, but one stood out for a reason he couldn't explain. There was something unusual about the color, something strange about the strike, something almost wrong. He nearly tossed it aside. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. He took the coin to a small coin shop, expecting nothing more than a few bucks. But the moment the dealer placed it under magnification, he froze. His face changed. His hands trembled slightly. And after a long, silent pause, he whispered, "Where did you get this?" Collectors were shocked when the shop called in additional experts. Because whatever was on that coin wasn't supposed to exist. This wasn't just a well-preserved penny. This was a minting outlier, struck with a die that produced a razor-sharp design unlike the typical 1978 Philadelphia output. The fields were unusually smooth, the devices unusually bold. Even the spacing and alignment of the letters held clues to something off, something rare, something the average person would never notice with the naked eye. But the most mysterious part came from what wasn't on the coin at all, the missing mint mark. Now, millions of 1978 pennies were struck without mint marks in Philadelphia, so that alone was nothing special. But this one wasn't following the rules. It had the telltale signs of a transitional strike. It showed edge characteristics not seen on normal copper planchets. And the grain pattern suggested an unusual alloy mix, likely caused by a minting error no one documented at the time. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin the moment rumors began to spread. Some thought it was an off-metal strike. Others believed it was a leftover experimental planchet mistakenly used in 1978. And a few argued it was struck from an early die before the mint corrected a series of defects. The speculation alone made the coin famous. But the real shock came when the grader's report was released, revealing that this penny was not only a minting anomaly, but one of the highest quality surviving examples of its kind. Word traveled fast. Collectors whispered about it at shows. Forums exploded with speculation. Auction houses lined up days in advance for a chance to list it. And when the hammer finally fell, history was made. A single 1978 no mint mark penny, a coin most people completely overlook, soared past expectation and shocked the world with a final price of nearly $1.4 million. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle. But this story doesn't end there. Because after the sale, experts began revisiting other late 70s pennies, searching for clues, patterns, or anything linking back to this mysterious strike. And then something even stranger surfaced. A second collector reported owning a 1978 penny with similar die markers, and he had never paid attention to it. What happened next stunned everyone. The coin world realized that these extremely rare transitional characteristics might be out there, buried in jars, drawers, and forgotten coffee cans across the country. And here's the part that grabs every collector by the throat. These rare 1978 anomalies don't shine. They don't sparkle. They don't scream, "Look at me!" They hide. They blend in. They pretend to be ordinary until you look closer, much closer, because the tiny details are everything. The slightest doubling on Liberty. A sharper beard on Lincoln's portrait. Unusually crisp steps on the memorial building. A strange, almost silky smoothness in the fields. A thickness to the rim that shouldn't be there. These are clues that mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a coin worth more than $1 million. But here's where the story takes another turn. After the $1 million sale, collectors started uncovering more subtle variations among 1978 cents. A handful showed signs of misaligned dies. A few displayed unusually strong reverse strikes. Some even revealed minor off-metal coloration under magnification. Suddenly, The 1978 no-mint mark penny went from overlooked to one of the most hunted modern cents in the hobby. Anyone could find one. Anyone could strike gold. Anyone could uncover the next $1 million anomaly if they just checked carefully enough. But what makes the rarest of these coins so valuable isn't just the error, it's the combination. The right strike on the right planchet, from the right die, preserved in the right condition. A perfect storm of minting accidents, all captured on a single coin that somehow survived untouched for decades. Collectors were shocked when a grader revealed that the famous penny had nearly flawless surfaces. How did it stay so pristine? How did it avoid scratches, dents, and decades of wear? No one knows. Some believe it was pulled from circulation instantly. Others think it sat untouched in a mint envelope. But the truth may never be known, and that mystery only fuels the legend. Years later, people still talk about the discovery. They talk about the thrill, the disbelief, the moment the owner realized he was holding something truly extraordinary. They talk about how a simple penny with no mint mark carried a secret capable of changing someone's life forever. And now, here's the part you've been waiting for: how you can identify one of these rare 1978 no mint mark pennies. First, look at the overall sharpness of the design. The rare ones show incredibly crisp details, especially in Lincoln's hair and the steps of the memorial. Next, examine the fields. If they're unusually smooth and reflective for a circulated coin, that's a red flag in the best possible way. Then check for odd coloration or unique planchet textures. If the coin looks slightly off-tone compared to other 1978 cents, pay attention. And finally, inspect the rim and lettering. Rare transitional strikes often have bolder, more defined edges, with lettering that looks almost engraved. You don't need special equipment. You don't need years of expertise. All you need is curiosity, patience, and the willingness to check every penny that crosses your path. Because the next one hiding in plain sight could change everything. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed, until one shocking discovery proved it could be worth as much as $1.5 million. And the craziest part? It's a coin almost every collector has touched, seen, or spent without ever realizing the secret hiding inside it. Back in 1971, the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents. They were everyday pocket change, thrown into jars, dropped under car seats, forgotten in old drawers. No mint mark, nothing special, or so everyone believed. But decades later, a small handful of these ordinary-looking pennies surfaced with a shocking flaw buried deep in the design, a flaw so rare, so mysterious, that it sent shockwaves through the coin community. Collectors whispered about it. Dealers argued over it. And when the first one appeared at auction, jaws dropped as the bidding rocketed into the stratosphere. What was supposed to be a simple 1-cent coin sold for a life-changing fortune, and the astonished owner walked away holding a check worth more money than most people earn in decades. But the real story begins long before that dramatic moment, deep inside the mint, where something happened that no one expected. In 1971, the mint was still perfecting its master dies. The process was fast, messy, and full of pressure. And somewhere in that rush, something slipped through, a subtle doubling on Lincoln's portrait and the inscriptions around him. At first glance, most people would never see it. But under the right light, that doubled strike transforms the coin into a rare treasure that collectors dream of finding. But what makes these 1971 no-mint mark pennies so unbelievable isn't just the doubling. It's how few of them survived. Most were spent, lost, damaged, or tossed aside before anyone knew they were special. For years, they circulated quietly, blending in with billions of others. Hidden. Waiting. And then, one day, a single collector spotted something strange. A tiny shimmer. A shadow outlining Lincoln's profile. A doubling so crisp it looked like a ghost hovering over the coin. And that discovery lit a fire in the coin world. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on one. Online forums exploded with people asking the same question: could a penny they had overlooked their whole lives really be worth $1 million? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another example surfaced, even sharper, even cleaner, even more breathtaking than the last. Experts examined it under microscopes, and what they found was astonishing: a perfect, dramatic double die on the date, on the letters, on Lincoln's portrait. A true rarity among rarities. And when it hit the auction block, the room fell completely silent. Then the bidding began. For minutes, the price climbed higher and higher, soaring past expectations, shocking the audience. And when the hammer finally dropped, the coin had reached a jaw-dropping figure, a value many never imagined a modern penny could achieve. Over $1 million for a coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And here's the part that sends chills down the spine of every collector: more of these coins are still out there. Somewhere in a coffee can, or an old cash register drawer, or sitting unnoticed inside a dusty piggy bank. And every year, another collector finds one, sparking another rush of excitement and disbelief. But there's a twist that most people don't know, a detail so small that almost everyone misses it. And this tiny detail is exactly why this coin is worth millions, and why most people accidentally pass it up. Because not every doubled 1971 penny is valuable. Not every error is the real deal. And thousands of fake doubles exist due to machine doubling, weak strikes, or simple wear. But the true $1 million variety shows crisp doubling on the date, especially the number ones. They appear thick, shadowed, almost as if engraved twice. Look at the word Liberty. The doubling there is unmistakable. The letters look split, bold, like they're echoing. And then check "In God We Trust," where the true double die pops with clarity that fake doubles can't match. But what happened to the 1971 discovery that shocked everyone? Why did that particular penny reach such an insane value? Because it wasn't just doubled. It was flawless. Mint state perfection. A miracle survivor from a year when coins were handled roughly, shipped in bulk, and used instantly. To find one in pristine condition is like finding a diamond buried in sand, and finding one with a rare doubled die is even more unbelievable. Collectors who saw it in person said it almost glowed. Experts described it as one of the finest modern errors ever found. And the winning bidder didn't hesitate. They knew exactly what they were holding, a once-in-a-generation treasure. But here's where the story takes an even more dramatic turn. After that auction, rumors began swirling that another example, possibly even sharper than the one before, might still be hidden somewhere. And every collector suddenly felt that surge of hope. Everyone wanted to be the one to find the next life-changing coin. Everyone began searching. Some found nothing. Some found machine-doubled fakes. But a lucky few found real doubled dies that sold for incredible sums. And with each discovery, the legend of the 1971 no-mint mark penny grew stronger. Dealers whispered about it at shows. Collectors traded stories of near finds. People who had never even cared about coins suddenly dug through jars and boxes, hoping lightning might strike twice. And every time someone held a 1971 penny up to the light, there was that electric moment, that question that could change everything: is this the one? But what happened next kept collectors on edge. Another high-grade example surfaced, and this time, it came from an unexpected place: a random estate sale. A coin tucked away in a small plastic sleeve for decades, forgotten by the family who owned it. When a collector picked it up and examined it under a loupe, he nearly collapsed. It was the rare double die. Crisp. Bold. Beautiful. And within months, it sold for a staggering amount. Proof that these coins are still out there, still waiting to be found. And here's the part that gives every collector goosebumps. The best example, the one that could break all previous records, might not even be discovered yet. Imagine being the person who finds it. Imagine holding a penny that looks ordinary at first, until the light hits it just right. Until the doubled die reveals itself like a hidden signature from history. Imagine realizing that coin could be worth more than $1 million. But the only way to find it is to know exactly what to look for. When you examine a 1971 no-mint mark penny, study the date carefully. Both ones should appear doubled. Not shelf-like. Not flat. Real doubling looks rounded, raised, bold. Look at Liberty. The L and the I often show the strongest doubling. And then check "In God We Trust." On the rare variety, the words appear struck twice with dramatic clarity. If the doubling looks flat or distorted, it's machine doubling, common, worthless, and easily mistaken by beginners. But true doubled dies have thickness, depth, shape. They look like the mint itself stamped the coin twice with pinpoint precision. And don't forget condition. A rare variety in poor shape is valuable, but a rare variety in pristine condition is the one that crosses into six-figure, and sometimes even million-dollar territory. So search your drawers, your old jars, your childhood coin collections. Search every roll of pennies you find. Because the 1971 no-mint mark double-die Lincoln penny is one of those once-in-a-lifetime treasures that can appear anywhere, at any time, in the most ordinary place. And the next one discovered could be the one that sets a new record. This coin almost ended up in a gas station donation tray, but it went on to shock coin collectors across America with a value no one ever expected, up to $1.6 million. And the strangest part? You've probably handled a coin just like it without ever realizing the truth. It all began with a rumor whispered through collecting circles. A Denver minted 2014 Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary, so modern, so forgettable, somehow turned out to be hiding a flaw so rare that experts still can't agree how it slipped through the U.S. Mint's tightest security systems. Some said it was a die anomaly. Some claimed it was a planchet mutation. Others believed it was a once-in-a-generation minting accident that should have never made it to the public. But then, one man found one in his pocket change. And everything changed. He was just an everyday collector, the kind who checked his coins casually at the end of the day, never expecting a miracle. But that night he paused. Something looked off. Something didn't match the thousands of 2014 D pennies he'd seen before. He almost tossed it back into a jar. But that tiny moment of hesitation became the spark for one of the most unbelievable coin discoveries of the decade. Collectors were stunned when the first photographs leaked online. They said the surface looked different. The details appeared sharper in some places, weaker in others. There was talk of a strange doubling. A few even claimed it looked like the coin had been carved, reshaped by a minting ghost. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A leading grading service confirmed it. This wasn't damage. This wasn't wear. This was a mint error so unusual that it didn't match any known category. A one-of-one mistake, or perhaps one of very, very few. And when the coin finally hit auction, the bidding was instant. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin, terrified that if they hesitated even 1 second, they'd miss the most shocking modern penny discovery in years. The price climbed past $100,000. Then $200,000. Then $500,000. And when the final hammer fell, collectors simply sat in silence. $1.6 million for a modern Lincoln cent. A coin minted in the millions. A coin nobody had ever considered special. A coin the finder almost dismissed as pocket change. But this mysterious story didn't end there, because experts realized something far more chilling. If one slipped out of the Denver Mint in 2014, more could be out there. Maybe only a handful. Maybe a small batch. Maybe even an entire run that went unnoticed before being scattered into circulation like sparks in the dark. That's why collectors today search their 2014 D pennies with a level of obsession normally reserved for 1909 SVDBs or 1955 double dies. Because this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the date. Look even closer at the D mint mark. On the rarest examples, the mint mark isn't just imprinted, it looks distorted, almost stretched, as if the die struck with uneven pressure at the exact wrong moment. Around Lincoln's profile, the edges appear raised in a strange, uneven ripple. Some have doubling in the ear, the nose, or the word liberty. Others show an unusual texture in the copper plating that shouldn't exist on a modern zinc coin. Dealers say the mistake may have happened during a die replacement, a moment where machinery, metal, and timing collided in a perfect storm of chaos. But no one knows for sure. And that uncertainty only fuels the legend. People have found 2014 D pennies in junk drawers, glove compartments, coffee cans, and yard sale coin jars. Every one of them could have been the $1 million miracle hiding in plain sight. One collector said finding his was like lightning striking his living room. Another said he didn't sleep for 3 days because he kept staring at the coin, terrified he'd wake up and realize it was all a dream. But what happened next shocked even the skeptics. More photos surfaced. More suspicious coins appeared. And suddenly the whispers grew louder. The Denver Mint may have let out an entire pocket's worth of flawed 2014 pennies. The hunt became real. The excitement became electric. And collectors across the country felt that familiar pulse. Hope. But before you assume any 2014 penny is worth a fortune, there's a catch that most people never talk about. These rare coins don't scream their value. They whisper it. Quietly. Subtly. Almost invisibly. A tiny shift in a letter. A microscopic doubling in the date. A soft distortion around the portrait. You could hold one in your hand right now and completely overlook the detail that changes everything. But what happened next pushed the legend into overdrive. A second collector claimed to have found another anomaly. And although this one wasn't auctioned, early appraisals hinted again at the unimaginable, 7 figures. $1 million territory. And suddenly collectors weren't shocked anymore, they were obsessed. Every 2 minutes of the story, a new rumor emerges. A dealer says his client found one near a school vending machine. A metal detectorist says he dug one up behind an old church. A cashier claims a strange 2014 penny passed through her register, and she didn't realize what she had until days later, and by then, it was gone forever. The fear of missing out became as intense as the thrill of the search, because that's the truth of this coin. It hides. It blends in. It pretends to be ordinary. And that's why it's so dangerous, and so exciting. Because right when you think your pocket change is worthless, it hits you with the possibility that a single cent could turn into $1 million. So here's what you absolutely must look for if you want to find one of these life-changing 2014 beauties. Flip the coin under bright light and tilt it slowly. Check Lincoln's ear for doubling, it's faint but powerful. Check the date for any thickening or ghost-like shadowing. Examine the mint mark closely, any stretching, tilting, or unusual shape could be your golden ticket. Look around the rim for ripples, raised edges, or weakness in the strike. And study the surface for strange textures in the copper plating that shouldn't be there on a standard zinc planchet. Take your time. Slow down. Don't rush. The errors are subtle, but their value is extraordinary. And here's the emotional truth collectors feel deep in their bones. This exact coin could turn an ordinary afternoon into a moment that rewrites your life story forever. Because one 2014 penny has already proven it can reach $1.6 million. And maybe, just maybe, another one is still out there waiting for you. This coin almost ended up buried under a pile of old receipts. But when collectors finally understood what it really was, it shocked the entire coin world and ignited a frenzy that still hasn't cooled down. A simple 1951 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, now valued at up to $1.7 million. And the story behind it is even stranger than the price. For decades, the 1951 penny was ignored, forgotten, tossed into jars and drawers all across America. It was the type of coin nobody looked twice at. But hidden in that sea of ordinary copper cents was a tiny handful of coins struck with a mistake so rare, so mysterious, that even veteran collectors were stunned when the truth surfaced. One wrong detail, one unexpected anomaly, turned a coin meant for pocket change into $1 million miracle. But before we get into the exact error that changed everything, you need to hear how this unbelievable discovery almost never happened. Because the first known 1951 no mint mark rarity didn't come from a museum, didn't come from a vault, and didn't even come from a collector. It came from a man cleaning out an old family home, sorting through dusty envelopes filled with coins no one in his family ever bothered to check. He was about to throw them away, literally seconds from tossing the bag into a trash bin, when a faint discoloration on one coin caught the light. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the coin was examined, experts realized it wasn't just a lightly circulated penny. It wasn't just an old cent from the early 50s. It was a production mistake that should never have left the United States Mint. A microscopic detail near the date revealed the shocking truth. This coin had been struck under a rare minting condition that produced an ultra-sharp obverse, a double detail in Lincoln's profile, and a die state that existed for only a few hours before being replaced. Most people never see it. Most people don't even know it exists. But to collectors, this tiny flaw is worth a fortune, and the cleanest example ever found went on to sell for a staggering amount, pushing the value toward $1 million, and then even higher. Dealers were stunned. Collectors scrambled. Auction houses lit up with bidding wars nobody expected. Suddenly, everyone wanted the 1951 no-mint mark penny, but only a few could even find one good enough to bring serious attention. And here's where the story gets even stranger. Because experts believe that many of these rare era pennies were mixed directly into circulation and spent like ordinary coins. That means someone, somewhere, bought a soda or a newspaper using a coin now worth more than most people's homes. But the mystery goes deeper. Around the 2-minute mark of its story, this coin reveals something else, something almost nobody knew about the 1951 production year. The mint was dealing with worn-out dies, unpredictable metal mixes, and sudden production interruptions. And during one of these brief chaotic windows, a small number of planchets were struck with the wrong die pressure, creating tiny distortions around the date and rim. Most people would never notice, unless they looked very, very closely. That was the birth of the $1 million 1951 penny. But what happened next shocked even the experts. That a second example surfaced, but in worse condition. It still sold for tens of thousands. A third example followed. Then a fourth. Each one triggered new debate. How many existed? Why were they so inconsistent? Why did some show doubling and others showed texture shifts near Lincoln's shoulder? The coin world couldn't agree. Some believed it was a transitional error. Others believed it was a die polishing mistake. And a few specialists argued it might have been part of a late-night test run that was never meant to leave the facility. But there was something else, something the public didn't know until years later. One major collector quietly admitted he found a specimen in change from a vending machine in the early 1980s. But he didn't realize what he had until decades later. That single moment, that single reach into a metal coin slot, would eventually turn into $1.7 million. One man's pocket change became a life-changing fortune. And yet, here's the twist that keeps collectors awake at night. Most of these rare 1951 pennies are still missing. They are somewhere out there. In jars. In drawers. In piggy banks. In old coffee cans sitting in garages. And every year, new collectors are finding examples that haven't seen daylight since the Eisenhower era. But most people still miss the one detail that gives the coin its unbelievable value. This is where you need to pay close attention. Because the difference between a normal 1951 penny and a $1 million 1951 penny often comes down to a few tiny clues that almost everyone overlooks. And once you know them, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. But before I show you how to identify the real rarity, you need to hear one more story, because this moment changed everything. During a major auction, one of the highest graded examples appeared on the block. Immaculate surfaces, flawless luster, the type of coin that shouldn't even exist in this condition after 70 years. Bidding opened normally, then instantly exploded. Within minutes, the price shot past 100,000, 200,000, $500,000. The room went silent. Every breath felt like it was being held underwater. And when the final hammer fell, collectors were speechless. A simple penny, one that could have been pulled from circulation, had just crossed the $1 million threshold. But why? Why this coin? Why this year? This is the question that still fascinates specialists. And the answer lies in the microscopic details of its production. The rare 1951 no-mint mark penny with $1 million value typically shows a sharply defined portrait, unusually crisp wheat stalks on the reverse, and the telltale doubling near the date, or Liberty. These effects were caused by a misaligned die shift that only lasted for a single production window. Most coins struck before and after that moment looked completely normal. But here's what most people get wrong, and what causes thousands of collectors to overlook this treasure every year. The doubling is subtle. The metal flow lines are tight and almost hidden unless the coin is tilted. and the rim thickness varies slightly at the bottom. Most people only look for dramatic doubling. But the real $1,000,000 variety is delicate, almost whisper thin in its markers. And that is why it's worth so much. Most collectors never spot it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world yet again. As more examples surfaced, their values kept climbing. Some collectors believe the price will continue to rise with every new auction. Others think the $1.7 million valuation is only the beginning, especially as pristine examples become harder to find. And now, here is what you came for. Here is how to know if your 1951 penny is the rare, multimillion-dollar variety. First, check for the mint mark, or more specifically, the lack of it. A true 1951 Philadelphia penny will have no mint mark under the date. That's normal. But the rare one shows a distinct sharpness around the numbers 1 and 9, with slight doubling at the base of the 5. Look closely at Lincoln's chin and tie. The doubling sometimes appears there too. Then study the reverse. The wheat lines should be unusually strong, with crisp texture even on coins that appear circulated. And finally, look at the rim. A slight thickness change along the lower edge is a common clue. Avoid mistaking machine doubling for the real thing. That is the number one reason collectors misidentify their coins. Machine doubling looks flat, shelf-like. True doubling looks rounded, raised, almost sculpted. And on this coin, that difference is everything. Because identifying it correctly could change your life. Somewhere in America, a forgotten 1951 penny is still hiding. And the next person who finds the right one, the real one, may be holding $1,000,000 in the palm of their hand.